So thank you as well that I'm invited here. And yeah, coming from Germany and facing or heading for World Cup, I try to have a whole football team with me, so say to 11, and I managed to have 2 others, but for personal reasons they couldn't join. So you just have me here, and I hope I will cover some topics you are interested and you were coming for here. So and I thought what would be interesting for you additionally, and that made me think of some things. I thought maybe it's interesting for you first to know a little bit more about the development and the work of our now board of cultural and ethnic diversity. So you get a little bit an insight what's happening inside our board. Then I will cover some special aspects that I'm interested in as well with mental health, concerning mental health, and then I brought some small intercultural research findings with me. And in the end, I want to as well discuss with you the curriculum components we are trying to develop in our FPA board. So, first of all, this board has been before, as you can see in the TF, we have been a sort of task force. Task force means it's only working for a period, normally it works for a period of 2 years, and then the task should be done. But as you will see, it runs on. So the thing is, the topic is more needed than we first thought. Huh? So 4 times, 2 years task force that made us think, how shall we go on? Shall we transform to another thing like a board? Because it is another, working on another level and more seen as a topic that is really important for all psychologists. So what have we done as a task force these 4 times 2 years, so 8 years? We always had some meetings together in an international part. Most of them, most time we had a member of the Netherlands, of Norway, of Portugal, of Denmark, of Czechia, Germany, and now we have also Romania and Croatia in. And these are active members. We have of all sort of other countries, we have other members, but they are more passive. Sometimes they join a meeting or not. So these are all the things we are doing. And I will show you, so we have some face-to-face or Skype conferences. We do like this. Now, symposium, normally with more people. We try to, we build up a website. We made a small booklet that is just the cover of it. Task Force Cultural and Ethnic Diversity, where are our aims in. That was quite in the beginning. We developed some ethical guidelines that have the focus on intercultural things. And we made a publication recently. It was published last year. Cultural and Ethnic Diversity, don't move. Cultural and Ethnic Diversity, it's about the challenges we will meet. And it covers all kind of fields. You will see later the outline of it. We made some small researches, so to say. We made some services that show how much the universities, first in Germany we made it, and then in some connected European countries, how much this topic is be picked up for psychologists in the programs. And it turned out that it is, sometimes there is one module you can choose for it additionally, or you have it just as a sort of profile, as a master program, intercultural psychology. But all the others, let's say, all the bachelor students, they normally don't get knowledge about that. And maybe I should introduce here a small thing that's important for us, because we have this cultural psychology, how to get culture into a person, let's call it like this. Then we have the cross-cultural psychology that makes comparison between different shapes in the cultures. And the intercultural thing is something that is mostly not covered, because it is about something that emerges in the moment people come together with different cultural backgrounds. It's not existing itself, but it pops up in the moment you get in contact. And we are keen on focusing this part because it's very important to know about these processes, the dynamics, psychological scene, that are coming up then, and to deal with that. So, and as you see, we are now here in the European semester. We also joined the European semester in Leipzig 2 years ago. And we joined an FPSA workshop, that means European Federation of Psychology Students Association, for all who are busy with students. That's really a really good working association as well. They are doing great things. They offer train the trainer. They offer all kind of workshops and conferences. So that is really good to give the information to other students. And we try now internally spoken inside our FPA groups. You saw it with the presentation of our president. We have all kind of boards and scientific committees and task forces, and we try to collaborate with them. And so to say, we also presented in Amsterdam, we made a joint symposium that covered, out of special perspectives, a different special topic. So we have some different groups. They are all busy on autonomously, you can say, and there is always some link in between. So we try to force that more and more. So that had been, and this is our, let's say, focus at the moment for the new work period of 2 years. And out of the last period, we had this cultural and ethnic diversity book, how European psychologists can meet the challenges. And this is just to show you the table of content. If somebody would be interested in it, I brought from Hochrewe Verlag also some, how do we call it, flyer you can take with you. Okay, I will cover something of the STIX part of the counseling psychology, and also the topic 2, I think. So, work plan that is running now. We had this focus, and we tried and we achieved to become a board of cultural and ethnic diversity. And our next steps will be or our aims are the interdisciplinary reflection, because what you can see, and I brought one recent example with me, you will see later, all our theories and methods and frameworks are shaped culturally as well. So I always ask my students, for example, how does an open Chinese look? You have a special idea what is openness to new experience, and it is shown in different cultures very differently. So, but we have this American view on openness in ourselves. So we have to reflect on all kind of these things especially in Germany, we saw that with integration models. They are also quite individualistic shaped, and we need to develop a new model for integration to help on a psychological way. The second thing is the responsibility to society and for an educational mandate. We think we as psychologists, we could be more powerful in preparing the whole society with the knowledge, because normally this knowledge about intercultural dynamics is not known. So we could be the ones who spread it into society by working in all kinds of working fields. So if you work at school, if you're working at clinic, if you're working at the university, everywhere you could spread this knowledge around. So, but what we need is first to prepare our students for that. So, and that is not seen as an educational issue at the moment. So we try to get that as an aim, it's a high vision, to get that on a bachelor level, mandatorily integrated. So, and for this is one thing we would like to go further with the development of curriculum components, and we are quite clear about that. I will show you later on how far the process is at the moment. You can't just say this is on a very concrete level, this is a curriculum component. You have to go on a more abstract level, so each country can adjust. Otherwise, you're just in a process of colonialization again. Mental, or how you will call it, colonialization. And the other thing is we want to try to start an internal EFPA conference on the Russian Congress to connect all the EFPA groups about these topics to develop the curriculum components. We are quite sure or aware of that we have to build up, for example, a platform from where we could encourage our colleagues or spread our knowledge to colleagues who are already away or out of university, who are practitioners. So we need to prepare them as well, and the academic staff as well, because this knowledge is not so known to all psychologists as it would be helpful. So we need to make a train the trainer or train the teacher program as well that is going aside with that. Okay, and they will also, we need them to integrate the curriculum components as well in the curricula. Okay, and that's my contact, just to have it. I have it later on as well. So I want to cover a little bit, because your expectation was from my both other colleagues also to hear something about mental health issues according to intercultural challenges. So I brought some things, and for this I brought a thing. It's, as you maybe can see, it's written in Dutch. I have my colleague here, he gave it to me. And the interesting part is it's already from 2010. And what it's said in it is that 20% of the third generation Moroccans, male youngsters or young men, have schizophrenia diagnosis. So first you can say, okay, 20% might be just a thing. Yeah, but then I was sitting, I was invited to Utrecht and was sitting there and listened to another colleague who mentioned that Afghanistan people, Afghanistan male, who were taken to psychiatry, they have 40% the diagnosis of schizophrenia. So, and I'm in contact with some students, female students from the Women Affairs Officer for Students. So and, they fall in love with Syrian guys, and they had some problems, and we discussed that. And if you look at this, in this schizophrenia manual, we have the delusion of reference. Delusion of reference, and if you get more in contact about this use of, for example, eye contact, you can maybe understand that Afghanistan male get a little bit mixed up by the eye contact, for example, in Germany, female use, women use. So we as Germans, we look around, we don't even see whom we are looking at in buses or something. But for a Syrian guy or for an Afghanistan guy, it's important that you, as his girlfriend, you look somewhere. You look somewhere and there's sitting a young man. You don't recognize, like Germans, we don't learn so much to decode all contexts. We just look around, and this guy might be looking back. But for a Syrian guy, it's on high signal. It's a signal that there is something happen in between those two. So his interpretation is, they are interested in becoming acquainted. So that is, if you know this a little bit, I didn't make research on it up to now. I now got in contact with a master student, psychology in Regensburg, and she maybe will pick up this topic. But we can understand, if you look through all the criteria for the diagnosis of the delusion of reference, for example, that you think every girl that is looking at me, she wants something from me. Everywhere I'm going, they are really interested in me. While dancing on the floor, they are interested in me because they look at me. So, but for a German, it is not. A German lady is just dancing, enjoying the situation, but not sending a signal. So, but if you know this, then we could start to reconsider, is this manual we are using for people out of those countries, is it really fitting? Is it a manual we can just use for that? I would say we shall reflect on it. So, because there are, for me, highly, it might be different, that our criteria different from criteria from people from Arabian countries. So we have to rethink. Another thing is, for example, you can have problems to understand just by language, but you have also misunderstandings, of course, by, for example, somebody is telling you something very indirect with metaphors, or he's telling you something, you know, my brother, he has this and this, but it's about him. Because it's not speaking out this thing, not because he's fearing or whatever, but he's used out of his cultural background not to address or saying something about himself. So we have some problems in the area of mental health with understanding. Symptoms are shown differently. So for example, some are more in the body, some are on expression of pain, for example, it's much more emotionally. Yeah? So we have already in Germany the reflection on that we have too many diagnosed Turkish ladies, Turkish women who have depression, because it's about 10% of them, they are misdiagnosed. And this is a way, if a doctor, most of them, these are doctors as well, not psychologists, is in contact and he is not used to that emotional expression. He's fully differently making his judgment about all the symptoms than he's used to normally, that Germans come and say, yes, and besides of that, I have a very strong pain. And we don't show it. We just speak it out because we are used to use our words and not saying, doctor, it's so hard. Yeah, so that is something different. Yeah? So that's something we need to know. there are different paradigms about health and disease. For example, health is often seen as something that's given by God. It's something that you have or not. Or it's also so if you come to the doctor and it's just the beginning with your pain, for example, it's the beginning of your disease, and they don't understand why do they make these long anamnese things. Why do you know all these historical things? Why do you know these things about my mother, my grandmother, my whatever? Huh? That's not understandable for them because the paradigm about disease is just the moment I get something, the disease is starting. So, and also the idea of getting healthy again is also different. It was already in winter 1985. I had a half-year internship in a hospital in Regensburg, and I saw my doctor colleagues. They were discussing, oh yeah, in this room number 9, there are always so many Turkish women around this bed, and when we are getting to go there and discuss how we want to go further on with the treatment, they want at least one person, one other lady in. That's really awful. We don't have our privacy. And at that time, it was really like that they threw them out of the room. Huh? It was not allowed to keep inside, which makes a lot of mixture. They were mixed up, these patients as well. So these are different ideas about that. Whereas, for example, in Germany, we think, leave him alone. He needs his silence. He needs his rest. Don't go too often there. Don't talk too much. Huh? Keep him alone and not making a little bit more. Bring something to eat and have a little bit action around the bed. Huh? So it's fully different. So, and then expectations towards the doctor and medicine. For example, if doctors, I can always refer to Germany, if we explain everything that can happen in a negatively way, preparing an operation, then they think, oh my God, he's not knowing how it will work. Huh? He's a bad doctor. I picked out the baddest one I ever could have, because normally they are not used to that. Everything that can happen is explained to them. So that's something. Or the medicine, it should be just, you have to make an external control that they take it, and not like Germans, they are used, you have a task and you do it until then, and then it's done until then. But in other countries, you have to remember, you have to remind the person, and the priority is given from the outside. So we have to know this as well. And we have sometimes, that's also in these settings we will see later, these different medical systems. So, for example, our medicine here in Europe is thinking in an exorcistic way. We want to get rid of the disease. Huh? And there is another way to think of it. It's an aortistic meaning behind. It is meant by this, live with a disease. Huh? So, for example, you can have a sort of spirit that is helping you with coping the disease you have. And it need not to be only chronicle. It can be also an acute thing. And then you go to make an altar, and you bring some milk and some things to get more healthy. Huh? But you have to keep that in mind, because they are thinking of ancient energies that will help you to heal. And if you don't include that, the person is, it's hard for her to understand how she or he shall heal. Huh? So, and then you have some cultural bounds syndromes. One of this is, for example, anorexia. You will have some cultures where it's not seen as at all. Yeah? So you have some special culturally bound syndromes. There are more. You have in the meanwhile, we have a whole list. I didn't bring it up to here, but it's one of these. Another thing is, for example, I don't know the English expression. If you had an accident with a car and you get a strong headache in your neck, or starting in your neck, in other cultures, you don't have it everywhere. How does it can be? It's so clear for us if you have an accident that it must happen that you have this distortion in your neck. Okay, these are just some aspects to raise the topic in your mind. And of course, you could say everywhere you have these things, it's meant culture, personal, and situational aspects that you have to consider. Yeah, and we learn about these things in this intercultural program, for example. Teach these people. So I brought some I already talked about. Then I brought you this. It's very simple, a simple graphic, but it has a lot of impact in it because if you think of a psychotherapy setting, psychotherapeutical setting, you have to consider some more aspects if you have a person that is comes to you with another intercultural cultural background. So, for example, in which country are you? For example, if you're in Germany, you have to go through some procedures to get a paid treatment, for example. You have to go to a doctor, he has to make a diagnosis, then you can go to a psychologist. Simply said. And in other countries, in Arabian countries, for example, they don't know at all these classical Arabian psychotherapeutical setting. They make it in a fully different way. Let's keep it like this. Then if you look, if you pay attention to the setting. So we are used to have this one-to-one setting. That is quite strange for some people of other countries. For example, if you work with Cameroon people, they like to be at least two persons. They don't want to come alone to your practitioner's practice. Some people like to have sort of, how can I put it? It's they like to bring somebody who has a special energy they think they need for healing. So it could be, for example, they bring their grandfather because they like him very much, and so the grandfather has to always sit in the back. So if you are a psychologist and you like to keep the secret atmosphere, then you think, oh my God, now there's another person. Or you have a translator with it. So you have to consider all these parts as well, that you have another setting might be needed for keeping those person in a mental secure state. Okay, just leave it for that. Maybe one part I just addressed to my colleague from the Netherlands because we wrote this article together in this publication is that, for example, or maybe you want later, it's from his experiences working for Doctors Without Borders, that in some cultures the role of a psychologist is not clear. Okay, we heard from Termo, it's not clear here as well for politicians, but it's there even more strange. So you need to explain if you go there for working, what are you doing? And it turned out that some metaphors are quite helpful. For example, in Sri Lanka, it was a thing that's called Sumai Tangi. That is a person who, or a situation where you can even tell a small story about. A person is coming and carrying a big bench of wood, and it's heavy. So on his way to A to B, he needs to rest. And there are some trees where you can sit down under it, and often there is another person. And you just rest there and talk a little bit with the other person. And this situation where you talk to another person, you make your rest under this tree that is called sumaitangi. So if you use this metaphor, they at once understand, they can transfer it to the psychological part, that you get some rest, you get some help, you get some support by another person. And then you take your bench again and you go on. That's also helpful to say you are not here to keep all his pain or all his sorrows away. He has to go on, but you have an acquaintance with me, for example. Okay. Yeah, I think we went on this. These are some other concepts that has to be considered, and the one of interdependent self-concept that I will refer to later on. I brought some small findings out of intercultural research. These are bachelor theses, but they give us some hints where we could make deeper or more research about. And all these bachelor theses were made in this cultural context, in this context of cultural contact and the emergence of intercultural. So I brought three things. This one is an inner cultural ambivalence about this, the construct of personality in individualistic and in collectivistic countries, and the so-called third room, negotiated relationship. Two of those are seen out of the immigrant's perspective, and that is one is the thesis of a lady, Irina Aksa, and she made research about. We have some students in the third generation Turkey with Turkey roots. So, and these students experience in themselves sometimes very unpleasant stages where they have to switch between cultural states in themselves. So they experience them as fully German behaving, and on the other hand, as fully Turkish behaving. And in between there are some gray mixtures as well, but especially the two parts they feel very uncomfortable with, because they feel unconnected to the other part of themselves. So what she did was a 4 hours lasting interview. It's small, I said, it's only one interview, but the interesting part is that she made the research on 3 levels. She looked at the content, she looked at when is he reporting according to her questions, switches in himself. Oh yeah, and then it happened. Then I got triggered, and then I started to show, for example, more emotionally my behavior, and I would say then I was really Turkish, a Turkey guy. So, and the other thing is, she looked, and that was a tough thing to do, because she made this whole transcription of this 4 hours lasting interview, and she went through it, and she identified all the changes in the syntax when he switches while being with her in contact. So that was quite interesting, because you could see if he was in the so-called German mood, he had beautiful sentences, all very straight. If he was in the Turkish mood, and she asked him later, did you experience yourself like this? So we have a sort of communicative validation. And then these sentences were broken, were more breaks in it, more emotional words are used, more adjectives, and that was also quite interesting. And then she had experienced herself in contact with it, this interviewed person. She took herself as a reference. So her researcher reference was also taken in account in these results, and she built up when she felt, oh, now it's easy going. I don't have to. It's not too conscious for me. It needs no consciousness. Or if she, oh, what is she talking now? I don't know. She got a little bit sort of mixed up, and that was referring to these syntax changes in the whole interview. So, and then she made a small model, and what came out was that there are some triggers in the situation where he feels not seen, so he experienced emotional stress, that he has to show himself more. Then he switched to the emotional part, especially. Then if this emotional stress came, also in situations of external stress, like just exam time, more using alcohol. He was drinking alcohol as a third-generation Turkey guy, or have some unclear relations. Then he started to more switch to emotional Turkey actions. And that means that he could be so emotional that all Germans were standing around and thought, is he getting mad? Or what's going on here? Huh? So he and himself, he felt very disconnected to all the German friends. Huh? And he didn't like this state when he switches, but he couldn't help himself, so to say. One thing is what can we learn out of this small hint of research? Huh? And we should prove that, of course, more further. But the thing is, what we can say out of the view of intercultural psychologists, we let people from Turkey more or less alone to make fully alone this acculturation process. Germans didn't adapt or went through this acculturation process. We just said, okay, you come here and you have to adapt. So they put inside themselves sort of switching between, I don't know whether this acculturation model is known. We have a four-field model of a Netherlands colleague of you. No, I skipped the name, maybe it pops up. And you have acculturation fields like integration, that's the best. So you have, you can stay to your own culture and you put in some things of the other culture, your host culture, for example. Then you have the adaptation. You fully switch to your host country and you more or less neglect your cultural roots. Then you have the separation part. That is where you only show or go on showing your own, your basic cultural roots. We have that often with, or have some experiences with French people who live in a closed community about French, speaking French, and have some more problems to acculturalize in Germany. And we have the marginalized people, for example, those who were coming from Hungary or Romania, German, Hungarian, German, Romanian people who were seen as Germans in Romania and in Hungary, and who were seen in Germany as Hungarians or Romans, so that it was very difficult for those people to find where they are belonging to. But in this case, there's a switch between adaptation and separation. And they just have this switch inside themselves. And we just left them alone, so they suffer from that. That they still couldn't find a way, or couldn't find a coping strategy how to connect both parts and bring it to integration in themselves. So I think that's something we could focus on more with research, and so not to go to the same fault in the next thing. Okay, about the curriculum components, because I would like to discuss it a little bit with you. For our board is or heading this challenge. For this phenomenon that we are all facing now, we need to be prepared as psychologists, because we are facing intercultural overlaps through the contract abroad or through domestic contacts as well. And also, we are not so aware of that in the knowledge exchange, the way we exchange knowledge. For example, the FPSA, these young people, they are much more aware of that there are differences in exchanging knowledge. Whereas, let's say, we as the already practitioners, we think, okay, we're here on a conference, it's working quite well. There are so many differences. But there are some, especially in the theories and so on. So we need to become more aware of our own cultural shapes. We need to be more sensitized for the others' cultural shapings. And we need to be sensitized for these shapes of didactics, concepts, theories, frameworks, manuals, and so on and so on. So that is, for us, an aim to say we need to prepare students and to prepare the professionals as well to give this contribution to society as well, to spread our knowledge into all kind of working fields. And as one thing, we have a best practice program. That is the one I'm the head of. We have a 4-module program that's running over 2 semesters. And the first semester is starting always in winter. And it is about the general cultural approach to this topic of intercultural psychology. So we have a lectureship with an written exam, and we have some additional exercises that show on an experiential-oriented way with what the theory is about. So, for example, an exercise about acculturation, an exercise about, for example, stereotypes, and developing, going from stereotype to prejudice. And in summer, we have this offer. They can choose out of 9 combinations and country-specific course, where it's working a lot, sort of on a special topic from 2 sides. For example, we have this slavery aspect, we have colonization aspect, covered by Great Britain with Australia, covered by Uganda and the Netherlands, for example. And there we show how you can have a good approach to understand the underlying inner logic of a culture. So you have the opportunity to get from special approaches, historically seen, the opportunity to pick out one of those courses. And we have a cross-cultural or intercultural assessment. It's maybe also here. It's an old word. It still has that word. Assessment, it's a developmental assessment. So to say the students are sent into exercises, but before that they are all trained as observers. So they all can also be in the role of observers and giving feedback. And they are also trained, or these are not all, but some are also role players in this assessment. So they also get the perspective of how to play a role and out of another country and feel the differences and the difficulties, the challenges that comes with that. For example, we have one exercise that is in the context of France, and another is in the context of Turkey, another is in the context of China, another is in the context of Ethiopia. So it's quite a lot, and these are all based on empirically research we made upfront. So, and what we gained out of that is at the moment, that's our state, 4 core components. Is a holistic approach of the didactics. So we cover all kind of things. So to say, this is the holistic part. If somebody is well known with training, intercultural training of Triandis, he is looking always at four quarters, saying there is cultural general and cultural specific training that you can offer to people. It's experiential or experience-oriented or information-oriented. And we try to cover all 4 of those. So that's our access to work holistic. Then for us it's very important that it is based on psychology. It's based on theories out of the social psychology, but also a concept that is in Germany made from colleague or Professor Alexander Thomas. He was before me the convener of this task force, and he made a perspectival approach that's beside of all the universalistic concepts, a very new and very innovative approach to have a concept about culture. And you can work quite concrete with it. The third thing is that we work with the cultural overlaps and the cognitive and emotional dissonance. How do we do that? You maybe already heard about this critical incident technique from Flanagan. This is what we use as well. We, for example, the students bring their own intercultural critical incidents with them when they have been abroad. And we have a sort of re-entry course where we go it all through, and it's a special way, a whole procedure you have to do and to analyze in a special way. You can learn that quite good, and then you come to more satisfying solutions for how to deal with situations, so that both parts of the incident or of the interaction are satisfied. And the fourth is that we are, let's say, we like to stick to that it is a developmental part we are doing. It's not just having a tool like some, now I'm using a stereotype or even a prejudice from our economic colleagues who offer who offer intercultural trainings, they see it as a tool. Yeah? You go into a negotiation situation, you try to get for your company the best out of it, without, you have to reach your goals in the best way, quite manipulative, but that's not what we are aiming. We aim a whole change in attitude towards, let's say, that people are different. And you can see that in students. We made also some a good evaluation. A colleague of mine, he wrote his PhD about that. And we have already experience of, we are now in the 17th year of this program. So that's, I even would say, if I want to state it, it's the intercultural competence or the intercultural thing, it is the next developmental task we have to define. Yeah, it's not defined up to now in literature, but I think we should go for that. Yeah, what's good with such a program, for example, is that you can do it systematically. It's not just it happens or it happens not if you're going abroad, but you can use it systematically to teach people along this and come to better solutions. This theory of Alexander Thomas, it's called the concept of cultural standards. It's a little bit maybe not so lucky term, the standards, but what he did or what he invented was he made a lot of interviews with gaining critical incidents. These were always, for example, in the time we still had diploma, there were always 2 diploma theses that were in one book about how to behave or how, going for working, for example, to the US, going for working to India, going for working to Ireland, and so on. And they were, these were, so to say, empirical works on all these critical incidents. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, what we're also doing, he made, for example, for the German army, he made a lot of movies to prepare them for going abroad for their missions. Some videos that we call it anchored inquiries, because that is something in these videos, all information is in for learning, for a learning tool that you can analyze the situation in a better way and come to a good solution. Okay, yeah. Maybe I want to turn your attention only to one thing. We also work with a lot of bicultural docents, teams, because we think it's very important for them to also listen how people describe things in different ways. So, for example, we both work together for the Netherlands part. So we have German Netherlands, or we have Peru, German, and so on, so on. Okay, I think that's it for me. I did say that as well. Some things, and thank you. Thanks.